Have you ever wondered how often you should eat to build muscle? If you have, then I'm sure you've heard some people say that you should eat every 3 hours in order to spike your muscle building process enough times during the day. But I'm also sure that you've heard some people say that it doesn't matter how often you eat as long as you get in enough energy and nutrients to support muscle growth on a daily basis. So how is it? Should you try your best to eat often, or can you eat less frequently and still build muscle just fine? Let's look at that.
Done.
The best way to clear out how often you should eat when it comes to building muscle is to understand the hierarchy of importance of dieting. But before looking at that, I first want to make one very important point, which is that we humans have, for as long as it's known, tried to find shortcuts instead of straining ourselves a bit extra and just being patient to reach a desired goal. This is something that salespeople and marketers know and take advantage of. And when it comes to dieting, this is usually by praising things like meal frequency, nutrient timing and supplements, etc. to the skies. So what I want you to do is to train yourself to think critically when you are searching for and taking in information that you think might help you. And with that said, let's look at the truth surrounding diet and muscle growth. As you can see in this pyramid, how often you eat, also known as meal frequency and timing, is placed fourth in the order of importance. This means that you have to make sure you're consuming enough calories, the correct amount of macronutrients, as well as eating a wholesome diet that contains a full spectrum of micronutrients and fiber before you focus on how often you eat or how well you time your meals. Because here's the thing, meal frequency and nutrient timing will account for maybe 10% of your muscular development at most. And this is true only if the other factors are in place first. Because look, you could have the most perfect meal frequency and timing in the world, but if your other factors is not in check, then you won't see the results you're after. So with that said, should you care about meal frequency and nutrient timing at all? Well, a couple years ago, there was a meta-analysis done by Alan Aragon, Brad Schoenfeld and James Krieger that looked at the effect of meal frequency on body composition. And quick note here, a meta-analysis is a gathering of all or at least many available studies and data on a specific topic that is then reviewed and assembled into a final conclusion, meaning that it's a highly reliable source of information. So here's the results. They found no significant difference on body composition changes when comparing a 1 to 2 times a day meal frequency to a 5+ times a day meal frequency. And their conclusion was, given that adherence is of primary concern concerning nutritional prescription, the number of daily meals consumed should come down to personal choice if one's goal is to improve body composition. With that said though, when it comes to meal frequency for muscle growth, Eric Helms said the following in this awesome interview with Rauda Antonio.
For muscle maintenance, does it matter when and how often you eat your protein as long as you hit your macros?
Yeah, I think it does. The question of how much does it matter, the magnitude is the big question mark there. So if you eat a whole lot of protein at one sitting, it's not that it doesn't do anything. It certainly does have a lot of positive effects, but it might not quite give you as much efficiency for gaining muscle mass over time as having those boluses spread out. So you're having maybe 20 to 50 grams of protein 3 to 4 times a day or 5 times a day versus having 80 or 90 grams of protein twice or 3 times a day. Of course, depending on body weight.
So the take-home message is that in order to get the most optimal environment for growth, you should have at least 3 rather evenly spread meals, including protein, throughout the day. Okay, so meal frequency isn't that important, but what about nutrient timing? That must be important, at least after training, right? Well, when it comes to nutrient timing for improving muscle growth, the buzz during the last decade has been all around pre, peri and post-workout nutrition. In fact, a ton of research has been funded by large supplement companies with the goal to find small benefits of eating certain nutrients around workouts. This is mostly protein and carbs. So what's been found? Just how important is the timing around training really? Well, let's start with another meta-analysis done by Alan Aragon and Brad Schoenfeld, where they looked at whether there is a post-exercise anabolic window. They found that having a high-quality whey protein available within 2 hours post-workout will maximize the anabolic response. However, how much difference it will make on overall muscle growth is very slim. Why? Well, because the findings didn't quite reach statistical significance. Furthermore, they found that you don't necessarily have to drink that protein shake directly post-workout either, as often advertised. If you ate a large meal including a lot of protein 2 to 3 hours pre-workout, you already have protein in these amounts available to maximize muscle protein synthesis post-workout. They also go on to say that pre and post-exercise meals shouldn't be separated by more than approximately 3 to 4 hours. If, however, protein is delivered within particularly large mixed meals, which are inherently more anti-catabolic, a case can be made for lengthening the interval to 5 to 6 hours. So having protein immediately post-workout isn't that important if you've been eating large and well before the workout. Now, not only that, they also looked at the timing of carbs, and even though they lack data to form any concrete recommendations, the assumptions can be made that carbohydrate availability before, during and after exercise is of greater importance for endurance as opposed to strength or hypertrophy goals. Furthermore, the widely claimed notion that you should combine protein and carbs post-workout for optimal gains have been challenged by recent studies as well. A study by Koopman et al. Found that adding carbohydrates in quantities of either 0.15 or 0.6 grams per kilogram per hour post full body resistance training in order to amplify the protein intake didn't actually increase whole body protein balance during a 6-hour post-exercise recovery period compared to the protein-only treatment. Okay, so that's awesome. I don't have to stress about meal frequency and nutrient timing. But is there a time when these concepts is important at all? Well, yes. The studies that were reviewed in both of these meta-analyses was as usually mostly done on obese, non-trained individuals. In the meta-analysis around meal frequency, out of the 15 studies that was pooled, only 3 was on lean population and only 2 was on exercising individuals. And we know that beginners and obese people respond very differently to exercise and diet than what well-trained and or lean individuals do. In fact, for people who's more advanced and or lean, such as dieters preparing for a bodybuilding or physique contest, or highly advanced sports athletes, then meal frequency gets increasingly more important. This is true because the constant signaling of lose muscle caused by the body when the fat percentage gets unnaturally low, or when an athlete is at peak performance training for a specific sport. This infographic from an awesome article about nutrient timing over precision nutrition explains perfectly how important nutrient timing and frequency really is depending on individual circumstances. So as you can see, except for the very leanest, muscular and most peaked bodybuilders and athletes, meal frequency and nutrient timing should be viewed more as a tool for long-term psychological adherence to the diet with only small actual physiological benefits. Okay, so the take-home message here is to follow a meal frequency and nutrient timing that you enjoy and can stick to. This is important. Since there doesn't seem to be a lot of physiological benefits or drawbacks of different meal frequencies, unless you're a competitor, then you might as well use it to your psychological advantage. And this is something that I do all the time. When it comes to meal frequency, I believe wholeheartedly in intermittent fasting. For me, that's a diet structure which keeps me full, it keeps me satisfied and happy, especially when I'm cutting. Best of all, when intermittent fasting is done right, it isn't negative on muscle growth either. If you're interested in using intermittent fasting when building muscle, then check out this video next. And when it comes to nutrient timing, I'm not stressing myself up over having to eat immediately post-workout either. Sometimes I enjoy a protein bar or a shake of whey after training, mostly because I like eating and drinking this stuff occasionally. Also, if I'm training fasted, then I think it's optimal to have protein immediately post-workout, but not otherwise. Finally, I want to make something completely clear. Even though this video is about dieting, or more specifically how often and when you should eat when trying to build muscle, I still want to shine some light on the importance of training. When it comes to building muscle, training is the most important factor, even more so than your calorie intake. Training is what signals muscle growth, your diet only allows it to happen. So make sure that you are actually using a solid strength training program before you start focusing on the diet. If you're unsure about what a good training program for building muscle would look like, then make sure you go through my free 5-step video course, The Path to Godlike Physique. Okay, so here's a quick summary of how often and when you should eat to build muscle. Meal frequency and timing is much less important than calories, macronutrients and micronutrients. Timing of nutrients, especially protein, around training do maximize the anabolic response. However, the benefits are small, and if food is ingested in medium to large quantities anywhere within 3 to 5 hours before the workout, muscle protein synthesis will be maximized anyways. For the average person, there seems to be no significant difference on body composition between different meal frequencies. It might be for more lean and muscular individuals on the other hand. And lastly, follow a meal frequency and nutrient timing that you enjoy and can stick to.